Towing is a career full of different situations, from vehicles missing a wheel to having none at all. A great operator learns to use all the tools in both his physical and mental toolbox. I'm here today to tell you about a new tool for your physical toolbox, the back pull hitch. I'll be the first to tell you I had my doubts that I personally aired on this podcast. But the fine folks over at Back Pull Hitch sent me a product to test and to use, and boy was I surprised. From the quality of the build and how easy it was to use, I was surprised. And it made me eat my words real fast. So if you're a doubter like me, head on over to backpullhitches.com. That's BAKPUL hitches.com and add another valuable tool to your toolbox. You won't regret it. Sarah, as the official board of directors, the three of us are, would we like to vote to remove G? Like we have the power. We have the power to remove him forever.
I think we need him.
I'm glad someone thinks that around here.
I'm no good at editing.
I don't necessarily agree. But for the sake of this wonderful podcast, I think we can keep him around a little longer. His days may be dwindling, though.
Episode 75 will probably be my last time on this show.
Oof, you gave it to 75?
I know, I was being optimistic.
Man, we just got to record our phone calls.
We never talk on the phone.
Yeah, that's true. I got tired of talking to you on the show that we don't talk anymore as much. Like we sit down for these shows and maybe quick phone calls during the week for something, but other than that, we really don't. And it's normally to talk about how stupid we said things on the show. By we, I mean you.
I talk more about you to other people than talk directly to you. Okay, any more funny clips you want to do before we start this wonderful podcast?
Want to play rock, paper, scissors?
Hey everyone, I'm Brad from Calgary.
This is Sean from Cambridge, Ontario.
I'm Terry from Cornwall, Ontario.
Hey, this is Larry from Pitt Meadows, British Columbia. And you're listening to the Towing Life Podcast.
Welcome to the Towing Life Podcast, where the ditches are deep, the trucks are loaded, but the drivers are not. I am your host, TowManG, and as usual, I am joined by my co-host, friend, and former co-worker, the man with very strong opinions, Mr. PlainGuy. And also joining us this week, we've got the single person that holds this show together behind the scenes, wonderful producer Sarah.
Wow, that was much better.
You're welcome. You showed me up when I wasn't here last week, so I had to pull out all the punches.
Well, it is nice of you to be able to join us this week, right? We told the wonderful listeners that last week you had your mandatory service, your mandatory 12 hours you had to work, and they were sad. You missed a great episode. If you did not tune in for last week's episode, you need to go back and check it out. I single-handedly think it is a story that regardless if you are a tower or not, I think there is something in it for everyone. Just the story behind it, the trauma, the accident, the recovery, the everything. It is a must watch. So check it out.
Yeah, that would be one that you might want to share around with friends.
Show them. This is the reality. This is the risk that we face every day.
Yeah. We don't normally ask you to share our videos, which we really should, but we probably should. It's the same thing with the slow down, move over. We're great with preaching to our own group, but we're not so great at pushing it past, and sharing that video or this video would help us a lot.
Sharing is caring.
Okay.
So that I learned that from the Care Bears when I was a child.
Was it the Care Bears? Is it the Care Bears that does sharing?
I was going to say the Care Bears.
Okay.
Producer Sarah, we need some research done. Where does the saying sharing is caring comes from? While you look into that, fact checking. While you look into that, it is a great time to mention that you can reach us at any point or check us out on our website at www.towinglife.ca. You can email us directly at thetowinglife@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Towing Life Podcast. You can also, if you aren't already, watch us on YouTube, the Towing Life Podcast. Right there, you will be able to comment, leave a thumbs up if you enjoy it, double the thumbs up if you double the thumbs down if you don't.
There you
go. Don't forget to share and spread the word about the podcast. Obviously, we are geared for you guys, the drivers in the towing industry. Our goal is to bring entertainment day in, week out, day in, day out. I mean, I bring entertainment to myself day in, day out. That sounds really dirty. But for you guys listen, we definitely strive to bring entertainment week in, week out. So you can find us anywhere. Everything is on the website. That is where I encourage you to go. TowingLife.ca. We are Canada's #1 towing podcast. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Sarah, do you have some news for us?
Yes, it's not just any Care Bear, but Share Bear of the Care Bears said.
Share Bear, my boy.
Sharing is
Is
caring.
that the purple one?
Oh,
Yeah, it looks
you're
like
just really
yeah, it's the purple one. You're right.
purple
Good
one.
call.
Perfect.
Point to TowManG there for knowing it was the purple bear.
for knowing. I don't know what is better, that he knew which Care Bear specifically it was, or the fact that we were able to pull a Care Bears reference.
I pretty much just looked at the little Amazon Music and I was like, purple. That's kind of caring.
What?
Purple's like a caring color, I think.
Purple is a caring color.
Sure.
Man, the things that we come up with sometimes.
Well, in therapy, they show you colors and they show you different images. I'm not saying I'm in therapy, but
kind of sounds like you
I
are.
think you just did.
this is my therapy, okay?
This episode of the Towing Life podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. No. So let's get into a little bit today. We got a lot on the docket. Before we do, I wanted to share a story. I know you guys said we wouldn't have time, but I'm going to fit this story in.
Well, you're going to make time now, right?
I'm going to make time. I have strong opinions and strong timelines. So we're both from small towns. Do you have one of those hangout spots? I mean, the town I come from, we have this Tim Hortons where everybody and their brother on a scooter, on a, whatever it is, hang out at this Tim Hortons. It could be a Monday night. It could be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Without picking on anyone, I don't think a lot of them work, or if they do, they work minimally, that they have all this free time to just sit around and drink coffee at the local Tim Hortons. Do you have one of those spots?
I think I got you beat. It's not the town I lived in, but it's the town I grew up in. There was 3 Tim Hortons in that town, and it was a big town of like 15,000 people, and we had 3 Timmys. There was one for like the scooter riders and those guys. And then there's the other ones for the guys with like pickup trucks and things. And then there's another one for like the riced out neon guys. So we're all separate. Yeah.
Our town has, although we have like 9 Tim Hortons, has one local hookup spot like that, like one where, and it's by the looks of it, a very inclusive hookup spot. So there's that good to come from it. Have you ever had to tow a vehicle from one of those local hangout spots like that?
Yes.
I recently had the pleasure of doing that. I had a guy with,
and I'm assuming you had multiple people tell you how to do your job.
That's exactly where I'm going with the story. There was an F-250 that the guy had just done some work on the rear end. It was all jacked up. It was whatever. It was kind of one of those, in my opinion, a slapstick put together truck.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but it's his pride and joy.
100%. 100%. As much as I like to pick on the 96 Civics, this guy, this thing was gold.
Mm-hmm.
So this big F-250, he did some work on the rear end, didn't tighten up the U-bolts. Anyways, gunned it at the corner, twisted the whole rear end, pulled the drive shaft out, all this kind of good stuff.
Oh, nice.
Had it parked right in the middle, got it somehow into this parking lot.
Yep.
And I'm hooking it up. Well, let me tell you, I must have ran into 50 years of towing experience in that parking lot. Because no matter what I hooked onto or what plan I came up with, there was some guy in the back telling me that I was doing it wrong. When I was nice enough to offer any one of these people with their 50 years experience a job, all of them politely declined. I was amazed. I figured if you were that interested in towing and had that much experience, why not join the industry? It is so frustrating. I don't mind an audience whenever I do a job.
No.
Right? We ran into that where you do recs, whatever. Like, I don't mind that kind of stuff. It's kind of part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people are interested. They really want to see what you're doing, all that. But to have a group of know-it-alls just standing there the whole time, like, I almost want to charge a premium for any vehicle that I have to hook up in that lot, so that I, to either get out of my way or to take the time to explain to you why I'm doing what I'm doing. Yes, I've been here before. And yes, I'm going to get this job done safely and securely. It is so frustrating.
I'll just throw in my little piece here. It was just a couple days ago. This car backed down this hill with no one in it and ran over a chain link fence. So while I'm checking to see where the actual bar of the fence is underneath, like where the rad is, and making sure if I start pulling it, that the only way it can go to make sure I wasn't going to hit or grab anything, I had 3 people come up. Oh, you should just spin it to the right. That's the only thing I can do here. I'm just making sure the coast is going to be clear to spin it to the right.
You're not doing it right. Do it this way. Okay. Would you like a job? How about this? I'll hire you right here on the spot, and I'll let you hook it up. And this will be it'll be like your probation period. And if you get it right, you can have a job. If you get it wrong, you owe me for the damages you're going to do to my truck and his.
I just need your signature on this line right here, for at least me of liability.
Yeah. And then you can have at her all you want. No? Oh, no, you don't have the confidence to do that? Then you should probably sit back and let the professionals handle this.
So what's worse, if an onlooker gives you bad advice or if they tell you to do what you're already doing?
That's a good one. I'm going to say bad advice.
It's better if he gives you bad advice because at least you can laugh at it.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally I've done it the way they've told me to do it just to prove a point. Like as long as there's no way of causing damages, but just to show them that it won't actually work that way. To stick it to them.
Yeah.
That's normally the best way.
Mine was the fact that whenever I did what I had planned after they told me what I'm doing was wrong and I should do it this way or this way or this way, what I actually had planned was to help straighten out the axle. I actually grabbed the truck off the frame and had him hold the brake. So when I pulled it, it actually helped straighten that axle out to get it better onto my truck. They were all amazed at how slick that was. These are the same people that were just telling me for so long that I was doing it wrong. Then went, oh, that's really cool. Yeah, maybe it's because we know what we're doing. Yeah, you know what though? That is a good question, Sarah. I prefer neither. I prefer that you called me at that point to do a job. Just let me do the job.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose one, I'd probably, like she said, prefer the bad advice. That way you can just laugh and go, "You're an idiot."
We're going to talk more about this next week because I just found the best Facebook thread about this guy shitting on a tow operator where he was not justified to do so. So I think we can talk more about this topic next week because we got a full block for today.
We can add it to episode 72. Okay, what would we like to get into first this week, guys? We got a lot on the block. Sarah, being the brains of this operation, I'm going to leave it up to you on which way we're going to go.
Oh, boy.
Oh, let's start with California. I think California, then bring it home.
California. God, we love America.
And not the BC California if you're in Canada.
Not the Canadian California.
Nobody thought BC when we said California. I know. I made that
our California.
What's that?
It's our California.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to shit on California. I mean, it looks really nice. They have nice beaches. They have a huge homeless population problem. I mean, we have that too. So who are we to judge? Yeah. All right, so we'll get right to the video coming out of California news. The Y guy. Try and get the Y guy on the show.
Today's Y guy question from Denise.
Why are tow truck companies no longer responsible to pick up all auto parts from an accident on the highway or freeway?
Tow truck drivers have a lot going on at accident scenes, and one thing they're not responsible for, according to CHP, is cleaning it all up. Tow trucks are only supposed to get the accident vehicle quickly off the road to wherever it needs to be towed. According to CHP, quote, the California Vehicle Code specifies that tow truck operators must remove debris and fluid from the roadway by use of one or more brooms and cover fluid with dirt whenever practicable.
Dirt.
Nothing has to be addressed on the shoulders, median, or anywhere out of lanes, end of quote. There is a lot of vehicle debris left in emergency lanes and medians. That's the result of bumpers just falling off or from collisions where people just keep going. What's left behind is considered to be litter to be cleaned up at taxpayer expense. Tow truck operators are legally required to hook the wreck up and secure any major parts that insurance companies are interested in. That's it. CHP says they are under no obligation to clean up more, but if they do, it's appreciated.
Yeah, it is appreciated. If you do have a Y Guy question, reach me at my Facebook page, Walt Gray News. You can watch more Why Guy stories at abc10.com/Why Guy. Everybody says, oh, there's all this trash in the road. Why don't they clean it up? And it's like, you know what? They're pretty busy. They need to hook up and get out of there because it's generally not that safe.
I was thinking there's one bumper that I see every morning on the drive in. And I'm like, I guess if somebody needed a car part, just pick it up.
It serves two masters, right? Gets it off the road and you get free part.
One thing I would just like to point out, when did newscasters go from having paper in front of them to tablets?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even notice that.
I didn't notice that either. That is
He's
weird.
got 2 smartphones next to him. I think he's got 3 smartphones altogether. She's got a tablet. Yeah, no, that is true. I mean, it's the age of technology. It's California.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if this news source is out of California, but obviously the article or the story in which they're referring to refers directly to California. What I find, I kind of chuckled even on the video about, just trying to find it here. Yeah, they uncover fluid with dirt.
Well, there's a couple of things to unpack in what it says there. It says that the tow trucks are liable to clean up the immediate area to get debris out of the live lanes, which I do agree with. Yep. To cover fluid with dirt. Now, I'm pretty sure California is one of those company or states that is very environmentally friendly. So dirt in my eyes, dirt is environment. So you're throwing probably dirt from the ditch onto the road to cover up oils and grease and all this bad contaminated stuff. And the next time it rains, it's going to go right back into the ditches. Now, I know with some of the bigger companies, they have like hazmat units and for big spills, and they normally have their own special truck to come out to clean up scenes real nice. And if you've ever watched Heavy Rescue 401, you see those from time to time on that show. We're running into this more and more to where, especially in the smaller towns, a lot of even the fire departments don't have the cleaning supplies to stop a big diesel spill that's coming out of like a semi truck or a dump truck, right? If one of those fuel tanks gets ruptured, to where they don't necessarily even have the big, long, I know there's a proper term for them, but like the white snake looking things to stop.
Booms. We call them booms.
Booms? Okay. They normally don't even have that. I've seen one of my local fire departments literally shoveling dirt out of the ditch to throw on antifreeze and coolant. Now, 9 times out of 10, if we are there, we will bring extra Absorbol and throw it on these spills and clean up the best we can. But then who's liable for, let's say, a motorcycle comes around and hits that nice Absorbol kitty litter or anything? Because realistically, you can put it down and sweep it up right away, but that's not doing anything. Absorbol needs to sit on that surface for an hour or 2 to help soak it out of the asphalt.
Depends on the product you use. I mean, everyone's been running around. This was a post recently on Facebook, right? Where it's a guy had a big bag of Napa absorbent, best stuff out on the market. There is, let me tell you, there's better things out there, right? Humble shout out to the fine folks over at Spill Tackle. I know we ran into Jacob at the show, learned a lot from him. And I've used that stuff on Rex, and let me tell you, like the sitting for 2 hours, they're sitting there doing the chicken dance on it to try and like break it up and scrub it in so the Absorbol actually does something you don't run into with Spill Tackle. Yep. As for the responsibility behind, who's responsible to make sure the road is safe, that's your roads department. Yeah. The roads department, whether they show up to this accident is another thing, right? Major highways, they normally do, but sometimes, local in towns and all that, they don't. The police are the ones that authorize to open up the road after the wreck. In my opinion, they're the ones taking on the responsibility for that kind of stuff. You do what your requirements are. You do what you need to satisfy, whether it be the fire department, the police, according to your contract. And that is what California here is saying, the CHP, is that this is what is required of you. But if you'd like to do extra, we'd appreciate it. Well, if you'd like to pay me extra, I'd also appreciate it. So if it states that I need to do this and this is what you're paying for, this is what you are getting. I don't know if California works similar to the West Coast, like ICBC, out in British Columbia, where there's set rates for all this kind of stuff. So I don't know if it is. If I went and cleaned the debris out of the ditch, is there extra that I can add on to the billing? Am I regulated in that sense? I don't know.
Don't you need other forms of certification though for environmental stuff?
Only normally after a certain amount of leak. right? Like a diesel leak under a certain amount is not considered environmental.
Yeah.
You know, you WHMIS and transportation of dangerous goods would go over a lot of that on what the maximum allowable is for that kind of stuff. But I should know this, recently taking transportation of dangerous goods, what the actual limit was. But throwing dirt on oil and coolant and what power steering fluid and possibly fuel, to me, is not the solution.
No.
So I did get a good kick out of that. But you know what? It's we talked about this where the newscasters for once actually had it was a nice story, was it? Where it wasn't they shitting on the towing industry. They're saying, hey, those guys are pretty busy. They got to hook this car up and it's not always safe and they got to get that job done.
Yeah.
And, you know, but obviously it's, by the sounds of it, it's that it's being passed on to the taxpayers, which I really, in this case, don't oppose to. Yeah. Right. It's the, you know, litter at that point. Like they said, it's no different than a guy throwing a Tim Hortons cup out the window. Yeah. But are they actually keeping up with it and getting it clean and making sure that those ditches are staying clean and proper? Because, man, hey, you get, you know, a bumper down in there that a car drives down and hit. A bumper probably wouldn't cause any additional damage into a vehicle, into a ditch. But anytime you throw debris of decent size in there, that's all more stuff that can go flying. That's all. There's risks involved to that, too.
I think it's kind of the cost of doing business, right? You've got a motorway with thousands upon thousands of vehicles driving down. You're going to get debris, you're going to get litter, you're going to get used car parts. Like, it's just it's just you have shit boxes driving down the road and a lug nut falls off or the mirror falls off because they clipped the semi. Well, no one's around to pick it up, so who's picking it up the next time the road department comes by?
Or a wheel off of a red Dodge Ram that came loose off.
Okay. Just that's hitting too close to home, buddy.
Do you ever find that wheel?
Nope.
You ever pick your litter up?
Nope, never found that wheel. To be fair, the road department looked for it too, but they never did find it.
But no, it is true. You know what? And like I said, it's I understand pulling vehicles out and doing cleanup. Like, we will get down in the ditches and we will grab the major components and we will grab, you know, but
I've been able to charge for a second truck for the amount of debris, because at least where we are, we're not allowed to put the debris back into the car for police contract sake. Right. So if it's more than 2 garbage bags worth of debris, which a lot of times it is, we can actually bill for a second truck.
Oh, that's interesting. A nice way to bill in. Yeah. I've never really, like, you know, the cleanup that we do is, most of it goes into the vehicle. We do our best to put, especially those absorbents and all that, into garbage bags. Yeah. Right. I see so many guys just pop trunks or back seats and just shoveling in kitty litter or whatever it is that they're using. And it's like, man, like, a lot of times people's personal belongings are still in that vehicle and you're just coating them with this stuff. Like, if you can avoid it, throw it in a garbage bag. Throw the garbage bag.
Putting a bumper or a grill into the back seat, I'm okay with.
100%. Just shoveling absorbent that's full of
dirt and gravel and
in my opinion, is disrespectful, regardless if the insurance is whoever's picking up the bill.
And even if the car wasn't going to be a road or written off, now it's going to need new back seats or a new front seat, new carpet, because now all that oil and grease is soaked in. That might be the deciding factor to whether that car's road or not.
Absolutely. So, you know, California seems to have it fairly easy in this scenario, which is kind of nice.
It's not quite the norm from what we hear, especially from outside looking in.
Absolutely. If you are out in California and this is actual bullshit that we pulled out on this Why guy, and you are responsible, or you have
PlainGuy.
Why guy PlainGuy? He could be my long lost brother. He could be my dad. The guy's a little older. He's not my brother. He's my dad.
He's got his own TV show. You only got a podcast. Step it up.
Father, is that you? What's
your thoughts on it, Sarah? We haven't really brought you in on this topic yet.
Well, it's interesting that, because I'm sitting here wondering what factors. No, I know what factors in more, but you're looking at safety of the tow operator versus safety of the environment. Mm-hmm. And what I really liked about the little clip was how much he did care about the tow operator. Yeah, these guys are busy and it's not safe out there. They need to get out and pick up the car and get out of there. Yep. But then you look at the environmental cost. Whose responsibility is that? I don't think it should be the tow operator's responsibility. I think it should be roads and environment. But that's a sort of gray areas when you get government involved, who ends up paying that, and it kind of just gets shuffled down. So you can't just leave debris at the side of the road, because you're not only facing the safety of the tow operator, but also if you were to leave debris, like especially down here in the States, I see it as a problem and a lot of times it's because our interstates are busier, at least than what I was used to on the West Coast. But you're going 80 miles down the road, and all of a sudden there's a piece of traffic or a piece of a car in the middle of the road. Like, you got to veer off and avoid it.
Yeah.
And so in that case, I do think it's the tow operator's responsibility to pick it up, but then it puts the tow operator at risk. So I don't know. It's kind of a
if that
rock in
piece
a
of
hard
debris is
place.
still in a live open lane from where he's working, who's going to go get it? Now, also by the law there, that what they wrote, does that mean I can sweep the debris off the road into the ditch?
Yeah.
I was going to wonder the same thing. But no, Sarah, as for your, like, if there's a bumper in the middle of the road, obviously, but it's saying that it has to clean up, the tow truck operators have to clean debris up out of the lanes.
Yeah.
So that incidence of a bumper being laying there shouldn't be a problem. Like, it shouldn't happen in a perfect world. I mean, it's no different than if, like, the guy hits a construction barrel and punts it out into the middle of the lane. Whose job is that? They're not going to call a towing company to go out there and get it. It's roads department.
Yeah.
But you're right. Once you start passing on responsibility for different things to different people, it tends to be, that's how things get missed. That's how things don't get cleaned up. That's how, what we're going to need.
It was his job, so I didn't do it.
Yeah, we're going to need one of those commercials of, like, a little duck with, like, a Volkswagen bumper stuck. He's stuck inside it or something. Like they do with the plastic tabs. You get enough of those where, like, the duck is stuck, or the duck is covered in motor oil from this Honda that rolled over into the ditch. And we'll get a Dawn commercial together, and we'll raise awareness for the importance of cleaning out these ditches for the duck safety. Long live the ducks.
You might be on to something.
Or any of your loved ones drove over kitty litter in the road recently? If you have, you may be entitled to compensation.
I was thinking using a baby duck for a slow down, move over law commercial. Then people would pay attention.
Until somebody hits the duck. Would you move over for this little baby duck spot? That guy didn't. Then why wouldn't you move over for a human? Well,
to be honest, people care more about animals than they do other people. So
that's what I'm saying.
When a dog dies in a movie, the whole theater goes quiet. When a guy or a human dies in the movie, no one bats an eye.
100%. I read in the news article once, and I had to call my wife to make sure it wasn't her. And it was woman hit by car trying to help a duck or a chicken or something across the road, and got hit by a car. I'm like, that would be you. That 100% would be my wife that would get hit by a car trying to help this little duckling or whatever it was. Probably a turtle, right? Like, I mean, we drive by turtles, and it's like, it doesn't matter how fast we're going. I get screamed at to stop. So yeah, no,
we're some of the best people to stop, though. Like, I've got a barn shovel in my tunnel box for cleaning up wrecks, like one of the wide mouse steel shovels. Fly one of those bastards underneath the tortoise. You'll get them to the other side of the road.
I have stopped for a turtle and moved it to the side of the road before.
Yeah. If you haven't, you're an asshole.
PlainGuy just got called out.
I have never stopped to move a turtle across the road. I am a lot of things.
And that's how you get canceled, my friend.
That's how you get canceled. That's a couple years away still. No one's on the turtle bus just yet. But no, okay. Well, what range of animal do you like? I don't swerve. Like, I will try and avoid most animal, like every animal. Let's be honest. I'll try and avoid any animal that I see on the road. But, like, I'm not rhubarbing it for anything smaller than a deer.
If it comes over top of my bumper, if I hit it, I hit it. Or if it's underneath the height of the top of my bumper, I hit it, I hit it. If it's above the top of my bumper,
I'm swerving.
I'm doing the best I can to not plow into a tree in the ditch. But
like, I'm swerving anything in a lane. I'm trying to maintain lane, but, like, I am not putting myself at risk or the vehicle losing control for anything smaller than a deer.
I will go into oncoming traffic to hit a coyote, though.
That's how you get canceled. And
they're a problem around here.
My wife ever hears you say that, and my Lord, you'll never be invited into this household again.
Wow, this I was not expecting this direction. I think we should put it out to our listeners though. How big does an animal have to be before you swerve?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, that's not fair. Most of our American listeners have never seen a moose. They see one in person, they might go, I'd swear for that. They're gonna be like, I'd hit a moose. No, you wouldn't.
Some of
we've
these
all heard the urban
mooses
legend
can get
of
up to 2 stories tall.
I was gonna say the greyhound versus moose, and the greyhound didn't make it.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a bus, not a car, not a dog.
A greyhound bus.
Yeah. No, it's true. So no, deer is kind of we had a driver hit a deer the other day on the highway, just enough to catch the bottom of the corner of the bumper. Not enough to he was about 2.5 hours away from home. He made it. The deer unfortunately did not. It's kind of part of it. When you're driving the highways and driving, especially this time of year, they are on the move.
Yeah. They're getting into the rut right now.
Is that what it is? It's the rut that they're into?
It's the rut.
So
they'll cross in the same spot almost every time. Same time of night too.
Good to know. So keep an eye out for those deers and moose and polar bears.
Yeah, it's time to start building our igloos to protect us from all the polar bears.
I know. I just tore down last year's igloo and I already got to build it again.
Well, it melted, man. We do get some warm weather. You didn't tear it down. Mother Nature said, screw your igloo. Melt.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad to have me back?
Sometimes. Sometimes.
I'm just trying to figure out how to segue from roadkill into
our
the Emergencies Act.
Oh, well, that's pretty easy. They didn't blame the tow operator in this clip, but guess who's trying to blame the tow operator in this one?
Fair enough. So, news coming out of the wonderful country of Canada in which we live. Oh, Canada. I mean, we find so many good stories on the Americans, and we always sit here on our high horses going, we're not that bad. And then we pull up something like this and we go, God,
plus, they know what we're talking about. It's in the title. Come on,
it's guys. In the title. Absolutely. So an article out of CBC, and the source will be available in the description on this on YouTube and on the podcast. And feel free to let us have your comment on it. Police needed Emergencies Act after deal to secure tow trucks fell through, federal lawyer says. So if you're an American listener and you're not 100% sure what we were talking about, back in February of 2022, we had the Freedom Convoy, as they called it, that rolled into Ottawa. It was a protest that occupied the city of Ottawa for weeks.
Almost a month.
Yeah. And during which time the government imposed the Emergencies Act, used to be formerly known as the Wartime Measures Act, which is a great deal of power for the government to have to be able to implement procedures or to
freeze people's bank accounts without warning.
Yeah,
nothing like
this was something that was meant for extreme situations, and the debate on whether it was required or not is one that is raging across the news, especially in Canada.
It's not even a debate; it's in court.
Court is kind of a debate. I don't know if you're aware.
Yeah,
but
yes.
Anytime that the act is used, there has to be it has to be debated afterwards to ensure that it was used for the proper use. So they have been on both sides of it throwing out why they should and why they shouldn't have needed it, why it didn't need to be used. The most recent, point they've come at has been to the towing companies. During this time, they had a very hard time finding towing companies that were willing to remove vehicles from the protest. If you remember back, we had an episode, and you can go back and check it out, with Metro Towing, where they had attempted to remove 2 vehicles that they were not aware were part of the Freedom Convoy and were ordered to by police who they are contracted to. And what a shit show that turned into.
Yep.
So the article reads, some of these towing companies feared they would be targeted by protest supporters. At least one Ottawa tow truck operator reported receiving hundreds of calls, including death threats.
I'm pretty sure that was the gentleman who moved the shed.
I'm thinking that would probably be that gentleman there.
Yeah.
In a February 22nd letter written after police had moved to clear Ottawa streets, Carrick told Ontario's Deputy Solicitor General Mario D. Tommaso that the towing industry was highly reluctant to assist police, and they were seeking an unusually broad and high-risk indemnification from the province for loss and damage. That request included indemnification for future retaliation. Carrick said that would require the finance minister's approval and would take some time. The head OPP officer warned that there was not enough time before the planned police operation to make this happen. So,
and that is why they say that they needed the Emergencies Act.
Is one of the reasons. I'm not going to play that clickbaity game that, the government says this is the reason. No, this is one of the reasons in which they are arguing their justification for imposing it. It is not the be all end all, but it is definitely a finger being pointed at the towing industry that I don't think in this case is very well deserved.
Well, there's the whole reason why there was so much backlash is you take a look at who all was there. It was a lot of owner-operator trucks, right? And there's thousands of big rigs parked in the streets of Ottawa.
I'm not sure if thousands of big rigs is accurate.
There's at least 1,000 trucks there.
That were removed? That needed to be removed?
I'm pretty sure a lot of them drove away on their own accord once things started to get real heated. But I'm pretty sure I was there. There's at least 1,000 trucks parked in the downtown core of Ottawa.
Not to call bullshit, but producer Sarah, can you find out if you can find any
I'm working on it.
Thank you.
So, anyways, from the towing company side, who are you towing away from there under these pretenses that the police are saying you need to remove these? It's your customer base that's going to keep your company afloat for years to come, potentially, right? Some of these trucks are local, but some of them are from all across Canada. Now, if you are a local company, are you going to say, okay, well, I'm only going to tow the trucks with Saskatchewan plates because at least then there won't be any repercussions? But there still will be because it's documented. People had their phones out. There's live streams everywhere. And as we can see, just even from someone moving a shed who was trying to be helpful to this cause at the time, he damn near got his company blacklisted from all these death threats and phone calls 24 hours. It made him impossible to run his business effectively. And I'm not even sure if he was able to curve that with the people talking for him, not against him in the long run. I don't know. That's something that we will have to look into. I'm pretty sure we've talked about him in the other episode. And that's one of the reasons why the tow truck companies that were even thinking about this said that we need for future retaliation, right? We need to make sure that if our business suffers from doing this for you because we are a private enterprise and not the government, that you guys are going to have our back in the long run.
It was a no-win situation from the get-go for towing companies. It was a zero win. Whether, I know of a company who a video appeared on them of YouTube being near the downtown core, right? That company for 3 days straight, talking to one of their dispatchers, received phone calls about that. Hateful and thankful. Both sides of the argument. Hateful that they thought the company was there to tow. Hateful that they thought the company was there not to tow. Right? It was a no-win situation. And you're right. It doesn't just come to, I'm going to tow the out-of-province trucks. The trucks that you were going to tow wasn't going to be the thing that was going to kill your business. It was the public outcry and response that no matter what you did was going to hold you accountable. If the government would have came out and published names of the companies that they attempted to get to tow them, and I know of many of them, those companies would be bombarded with people from one side of this argument, right? Equally as stupid as the people from the other side of this argument. And I won't name either one because I do believe the radicals on both sides of this were equally as, you didn't want to deal with. So just that side. So a company even saying no, if the police or the government were to release those names, would face repercussions. I can't imagine being a company that would say yes to it, right? Regardless of where you stand on the political side of this story, right? I've always said we don't get too much into politics in this. I have no problem sharing my political beliefs. I don't impose them on anybody. I've always leaned more to the right. That being said, I supported a lot of things and I disagreed with a lot of things that went on with this Freedom Convoy, but that is irrelevant. What's irrelevant here was business owners trying to find the best approach for their business, meaning if they were willing to take on that risk for whatever compensation. Now, it does go on to say, like we said, about the indemnification, which I Googled to see what that word meant. I'm actually amazed that I managed to pronounce it 3 times, I think, correctly, which is pretty much they want compensation.
Yeah.
And they are not only looking for compensation to tow the vehicles from the convoy, but I'm sure they were looking for compensation if their business showed a loss because of it. If they could prove it negatively affected their business in ways, I'm sure there was all kinds of things built in. And that is why the finance minister would need time to approve this kind of thing. Like, I'm guessing these numbers were high enough of what we've heard, and it's only rumors at this point. Allegedly, they didn't get paid very much for the work that they did.
Yep.
That being said, there could have been backdoor money behind that because of the negative effect that it had on the company that isn't getting reported, and there's only few people that would actually know what that true number is.
The one issue is the long-term effects. Like, you look at all these big brands, and anytime there is one bad thing that goes on, all these brands jump out and start backing this cause or whatever, because it's brand association. Right? It's brand association. You think of a bad thing, but you say, oh, Coca-Cola supports this and supports this movement, yada, yada, yada. Now, if you support that movement, you're more likely to buy Coca-Cola and vice versa, right? So for these companies with their name on their door, let's say they got to go pick up a Purolator truck down the road in weeks or months to follow, but Purolator knows that, hey, this guy is associated with this issue, and there's videos circling the internet with all this. Maybe we shouldn't get him to tow our truck, because then maybe people will associate his brand with our brand, right? Because as much as anything is, if you are online, you technically have a brand of some sort, regardless if you're trying to sell anything, because a brand is also just an online presence, is how you carry yourself. And unfortunately, that's just the world we live in nowadays, is everyone will form their opinions on you and your company and anything that comes out from you, which is therefore your brand.
But in this case here, they covered the logos on the truck.
They did.
Like, you can tell that one of those was a roadside truck.
Mm-hmm.
And, but the brand is irrelevant, because even myself being, well-versed enough in the industry, especially in Ontario, I wasn't easily able to identify who those trucks were.
Yeah.
And that's
what these companies are worried about.
And they didn't really have much footage on it. No. Yeah, no, they were worried about somebody saying something. Either that, or let's be honest, the safety of their operators comes into play too. Right.
Well, it could have also been where if they said yes to it a lot sooner, maybe they wouldn't have covered up the trucks as well as they did. Mm-hmm. Who knows? If, let's say, Bob's Towing just said, yep, sure, we'll go do that. And they sent 15 trucks down there to start removing these trucks. Well, is anyone going to take the proper steps to cover up these trucks or to protect them without this pushback, right? We see that a lot in something completely different. Roadside rates. You won't get a raise unless you push back a little bit. You won't get more to benefit you unless you push back a little bit, right? You see that everywhere. It even comes down to ordering your food, right, at a restaurant. So maybe, just maybe, since the towing industry pushed back for so long, that's the only reason why the trucks got covered up as well as they did. And maybe that's the reason why there is fewer repercussions in the long-lasting effect of towing the convoy.
It's possible. Sarah, are you able to find any numbers on what, how many?
It's kind of skewed because, you're going to have your news sources on the left that are reporting in the hundreds, and then you have your news sources on the right that are reporting in the tens of thousands. There was one post that went out that there were 250,000. That looks like it was disproved. But it seems to me that it was in the thousands. Mm-hmm. Not 50,000. 50,000 was too many, but it seems to me that it was in the thousands based on what I'm reading.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, so although our initial convoy is estimated to be 1,600, that number significantly increased to 36,000 trucks in just a few days. It is now estimated the number of heavy trucks heading to Ottawa is closer to 50,000. But that, how there was convoys going out throughout Canada,
yeah,
right. I think that actually doesn't just refer to Ottawa.
And there was also a lot of staging areas where a lot of people drove their rigs out and parked in these staging areas, mm-hmm. and then proceeded to walk into downtown, for the risk of being blocked into downtown because other people have required appointments and stuff that they had to leave and go make money, right? So they couldn't justify leaving their asset, their truck, locked in the downtown core for weeks or months to come because no one knew at that point.
For those trucks that did get towed, whatever happened to them?
Again, I'm going to go allegedly because I can't confirm any of this, was that they were moved to a storage location. And at which point they were released to the owners after they paid some sort of fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they were abandoned.
The one truck that had the big F Trudeau trailer, that actually was impounded for a set amount of days.
I'm sure. I mean, we've seen this game before. You play games, and I'm not saying it was playing games they did. Don't mistake in this for not supporting their cause or whatever it is. I stay very neutral on it. But if you want to run up against the government like that, by all means. But know that, I'm sure there was a safety violation or two they could probably find if they really wanted to. We've all had our run-ins with the MTO or the DOT in the US case, where if they really want to get you for something, they're going to find a way to get you for something and impound your rig and everything else. I imagine parking on their front doorstep is a good way to get on that side of them.
The government's got a very big stick with a lot of little sticks that are poking out from every direction. I'm sure one of those little pricks is going to get you one day.
I like that quote. I don't fully agree with it, but I do like it.
Yeah.
I do like it. So,
but at the end of the day, and maybe this is a bit politically charged, but at the end of the day, as of October 1st, it was either September 30th or October 1st, the mandates did get dropped.
Yep.
So this is a discussion I had with somebody recently. Did the Freedom Convoy make a difference?
I believe it did.
I do too, because not that long after the convoy pretty much cleaned up, restrictions started to get lifted a lot faster than what we thought they were going to get lifted. The fact that they stayed in place for as long as they did, like the travel restrictions, I know a lot of people were upset about. But the other side of this, like I know a lot of people that had to lose their job because they didn't want to do one thing or another.
You're getting off track. Answer the question. Did it help or not?
It did.
Okay. Because you were going to go down a very slippery slope that we do not want to get into. I believe that we'll never know for sure. Right. Because again, the right and the left will both have their arguments on this. But I do believe in one way or another, it had an effect. Yeah.
At the end of the day, whether you agree or disagree with the Freedom Convoy, I still think it's pretty cool that in the year 2022, you can get a bunch of people together and make a difference in the world. So
100%. Whether that difference was positive or negative, again.
Yeah, it's just, I'm glad to see it's still a possibility in a world of social media.
The fact that we had a movement here in Ottawa that reached to the Netherlands and across the opposite side of the world over in Australia. It was a powerful thing, whether you're for or against it, just the complete awe, the fact that most of the world all felt some way impacted by this and decided to do their own part in their own corner of the world. It was
really it started in Canada. So like,
yeah.
Way to go, Canada. Way to go.
We went over this. We had a lot of good things that have come out of Canada. I don't know. Well,
one day,
we've got this podcast.
I wasn't going to say anything.
One day, maybe it'll be added to the list, but I mean, that's going to be a list depending on who you are and what color you vote. So, Sarah, before we do get going, we're going to run along on this episode. Screw it. We're in it to win it.
Okay. All right.
You did have a bit of a question. We don't know what it is. I have no idea what we were getting set up for. I am kind of scared and intimidated.
Well, if it's anything like what just happened, I don't think this question is anything to worry about.
Yeah, no, the heat's been turned down now. Don't worry.
The heat's been turned down. All right. Okay. It's getting a little hot.
In fact, I might even bore you a little bit by talking about the economy.
Okay.
All right. So I was listening to this American economist. His name is John Cochrane. And he was asked about the future of robots and how it'll affect trade jobs. And, they were talking more about the trucking industry, but I was like, yeah, tow trucks, kind of, they're cousins, they're brothers to the trucking industry. I think this is kind of relevant. And he said, self-driving cars are going to be wonderful, and it'll mean the job of the truck driver will vanish. He then went on to say, this is going to take 10 to 20 years, so people driving a truck now won't be suddenly and unexpectedly out of a job. No one who is 20 years old and has a brain in his or her head thinks about going into the truck driving industry.
Whoa.
So I know, harsh words. I was like, ooh, that stings, dude.
Hot take, John Cochran.
Wow.
That's what
I don't know if I'd be
thinking.
throwing stones with a name like John Cochran. Just saying.
So I wanted to know what you guys think about this concept of self-driving cars and robots, and could a robot ever tow, not just tow a vehicle, but could a robot ever recover a vehicle? And what does that mean then for the future of the industry?
As long as there is a single human being behind the wheel of a single automobile, we will always screw something up and put something into a ditch. And the thing that compels a lot of people to get into our industry is that everything is different. And if there's one thing that I know about computers as it sits right now, even with the ability of AI and learning, it'd be very hard to overcome getting a robot down into a ditch and hooking something up perfectly in spot to get that disabled vehicle back out of the ditch and loaded safely to go back down the road. Autonomous vehicles is great in theory as long as every vehicle around it is autonomous, because then it becomes like a train. And trains are fairly safe for the most part until you throw a little hiccup or a rock on the tracks, per se. So, do I think it's going to happen? Maybe. Probably long after I'm dead. But I think this timeline that everyone's saying, 2030, 2040, I think it's a little close. I think it's going to be a little bit longer than that.
I disagree with a couple of things you've said. And one is the fact that you're comparing autonomous vehicles to trains. I do get what you're saying, is to have these self-driving vehicles, as long as there's one idiot that's actually behind the wheel around one of them, you'll find a way to bounce off them. I agree with you there. I think when it comes, this is something that is definitely going to hit the trucking industry before it hits the towing industry. That goes without doubt, just because I don't want to say the simplicity of the task. Right? Who would have thought that we'd be able to have robots do the things that we have them do now? It is amazing, right? If we go back 10 years even, right, and look at the improvement with AI, with technology as a whole, I think we would be amazed. So to really think that that could be 60, 70 years away and not sooner than that, I think we're fooling ourselves a bit, right? The growth has been exponential. So I think you're going to see that speed up. Why I say this will affect the trucking industry, as much as John Cochran here took a pretty hot shot at the trucking industry and saying that no 20-year-old kid thinks of driving a truck, we're seeing worker shortages. And the trucking industry is one that is feeling them extremely hard. Yeah. And the longer that goes on, the longer that it is going to give incentive to develop this kind of technology to solve that problem, right? What is that? The necessity is the mother of creation.
Yep.
Something along those lines.
We are seeing some of that. Over in Europe, there is electric trucks that will drive down the highway, and there's sections of highway that has built-in overhead wires to charge this truck while it drives down the road. It's a new concept. It's still in the infancy, but it's actually pretty cool. I watched a YouTube video on it from a reputable source, and they had the government there, and they're thinking about doing this nationwide. I think it was in Germany or I don't think it was in Switzerland. I can't remember exactly where it was. But stuff like that is going to take a long time to build the infrastructure for, right? Because along with autonomous vehicles, you're probably looking at electric. That means we need to electrify most roads, right, to keep these things charged, unless they have a battery life that's pretty good, or it's a
but
very
we're not talking about replacing every truck that's going. Don't forget, when you're talking Europe is the best place to implement this because they can drive for 5 hours across 5 countries on a charge. So we're not talking about the truck will park in the depot and plug itself in and do all that. There's still going to be a human assistance required to it, but the job of driving from point A to point B, I think, is what we're referring to. You can do that with an electric vehicle. You do not need wire charged roads. You do not need. It might be something they're looking into as an alternative, but it comes down to a lot of that. There's a necessity for it, and then unless we can fill these job gaps or redistribute in a way that we can, you know what I mean, get our working pool up. Right? Everyone keeps giving this stupid argument. I keep hearing nobody wants to work anymore. Unemployment is at an all-time low. The baby boomer generation is retiring. COVID has killed immigration for the last 2 years. Our workforce has shrunk dramatically.
Yeah.
And you're wondering why there isn't people to work these jobs? Towing industry is feeling this just like anybody else.
Yeah.
Right? We're seeing it in not only worker shortage, we're seeing it in supply demands, or supply shortages for things. It's not that nobody wants to work. If it was that easy of a solution, then yes, I would say there is this technology might take longer to produce because there isn't as much of a need. The need is to get these people into the workforce. The reality is the workforce doesn't exist.
And that's also because the last 30 years, the schooling system has been pushing everyone to college and university for all these degrees.
Fuck the schooling system here. No. Fuck your schooling system argument.
Well, no, because
there needs to be people. How many kids does the average family have nowadays compared to 30, 40 years ago?
I get that.
How many kids do you currently have right now?
Zero.
How many kids do I currently have? Zero. Sarah? Zero. Right? The generation previous to us would be at a football team by now. It's true though, right? Families of 6, 7 kids, 2 at a minimum, 3 at a minimum, all this kind of thing. Yeah. It's not just that everyone is going off to university, because those university kids are still in the workforce and they're not even working under their degree. But that isn't the root cause. Our workforce has shrunk. It is not university's fault. It is not college's fault. I don't believe it's any of those fault. I believe this strictly comes down to we created an environment where there was so much work for all the people that were there in order to keep unemployment rates low. And when that workforce, that baby boomer retired, our generation and the generation after us wasn't able to fill the gap. And we are seeing the effects of that now. Throw on COVID, throw a lack of immigration in to be able to, and I don't have the numbers to say immigration went down, but we've got to believe that in 2 years of COVID, immigration numbers had to drop. It's just a given what was the state of the world.
I felt like they actually increased over COVID, but that could have just been the news source I was.
Very possible. But when you go from, let's say, I'll throw numbers out, let's say 1 million people to 750,000 in the workforce, right? And then there is numbers on showing the shrinking of our workforce.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is going to happen? Then the companies start competing against each other. The undesirable jobs, and I hate to say it, towing in a lot of ways falls under that, are going to be the victim of it. The trucking industry will be a victim of it. All these not being home every night, not being, all these crazy hours, whatever. The employee is in power right now and has the opportunity to choose to work where they want because of this shortage, and where they want to work is not in trucking and is not in towing. End of rant.
And I think the other little side spit off that is, I know in the last, ever since I got into the towing industry, we've had a lot of new guys thinking about coming into the towing industry, and they don't make it past a couple days of training because the TV show says, hey, look at this real cool profession. They're like, oh, that's cool, I could do that. And then they figure out the amount of work and the amount of hours you got to put in. They're like, this isn't worth it for me, and they move on.
I can see where you say that.
Yeah. But you see that with most TV shows. Like, just look at the new Top Gun movie that came out. You know how many people applied to be in the Air Force after that movie came out?
Yeah, those are all the stupid people you don't want in the Air Force anyways. That's like if you watch one episode of Heavy Rescue 401 and you want to be a tow truck driver, go to hell.
But it is true. There is a lot of people out there, and it is part of a recruitment campaign, I guess you could say.
Yep.
It is, right? It brings more light to the industry as a whole.
Absolutely. So yes, and I think like going back to the Sarah's initial question. Wait, what was the initial question?
You
said we turned down the heat on this one. I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I this got going better than I thought it would. I was asking specifically if you thought that there was ever going to be a place for robots in the towing industry, actually.
Yes. I can't imagine there wouldn't be at some point down the line. I mean, unless we blow ourselves up well before then, which is a likely possibility too, the way the world is going. Yeah. But I think if we can manage to stay on this planet for long term, yes, I think thing's going to be controlled by. There's going to be a lot of automation at that point. So I can't. Can I physically see it with my eyes and go, "This is how it would work"? No, but there's people much smarter than myself out there building.
And that's what I was saying. Where if everyone got into, if it's all self-driving cars and every car knows where every other car is at that time, it's like a train, it's like a monorail, right? They all start accelerating at the same time until there is no longer a human being being able to put physical input into a wheel. Until that last person's gone, there will always need to be the towing industry. And until that point, the towing industry will still be going strong. Well, not necessarily strong, but it'll still be going. And of course, if there's that type of technology for that amount of automation, it is going to fall into the towing industry in limited amounts, because there's always going to be a need for a guy like you or a guy like me, or probably most people watching this podcast, to physically go down and hook up a car. Because that part, the last mile of getting that car picked up out of the ditch, I think is going to be very, very hard for a robot to fully do.
Okay.
I'm going to leave you guys on this question, a little trivia question.
This is amazing.
Okay, we got flying cars in the Jetsons, right?
Okay.
What year is the Jetsons set in?
2030, isn't it?
I don't know.
Farther along.
1972.
No, I actually thought it was earlier, but it's actually not until 2062. So it's just interesting that they thought that we would have flying cars by 2062. So let's see. Let's all check back in 2062 and see where
we'll see you on episode 7. We'll see you on episode 7652 to discuss if the Jetsons came true. On that note, it has been another wonderful episode. Do not forget
bombshell.
Absolutely. Do not forget to check us out at www.towinglife.ca. Find us on Facebook at the Towing Life Podcast. You can email us directly at thetowinglife@gmail.com. Be sure to check out the episodes every week. Like, subscribe,
share around with your friends,
and
leave a comment down below.
Thanks for coming out, guys. Can't wait to see you next week.
Toodles.
Bye.
Take care.